Secretary of the Visakhapatnam branch of C. Anirban Paul, in absentia, learned speaker and very notable and very popularly known as Trust Subbarao Garu. Sri K.V. Subbarao Garu, today's speaker, and past chairman, senior members, and other dignitaries, welcome to the seminar on recent changes in income tax regarding the charitable and religious institutions. Members, charitable and religious institutions altogether not meant for profit motive and running on some defined noble cause. The income tax exempts the income of a charitable trust from the scope of income tax. However, the exemption will be granted on the fulfillment of the certain specified conditions. To the extent that income of the trust is not covered by an exemption, the income will be taxed in a manner similar to an association of persons. Hence, for an income up to 2.5 lakhs, there will be no need to pay tax. However, it should be noted that the AOP tax rates will be applicable only for incomes which is not covered by the exemption offered under the Act to charitable trust. The trust, if violate any of the conditions relevant to which it was granted registration and relevant to which it was granted registration under the Act. In such circumstances, the income of the trust which has forfeited the exemption will be taxable to the maximum marginal rate. Friends, any trust with a gross total income of more than the basic exemption limit is required to file the income tax return mandatorily. Also, the following types of trusts are required to file the income tax return mandatory in respect of the gross total income: a research association, news agency, association of institutions, fund or institution, university or other educational institutions, mutual funds, securitization trusts, and so on and so forth. With these few lines of introduction, and to get more updates on this subject of this recent changes in income tax regarding the charitable and religious institutions, our well-noted speaker Sri Subbarao Garu is here. Sir, welcome, sir. Subbarao Garu. Really, we are very fortunate to have among us today. Really, it is we are very fortunate, sir. So excellently, because from the long association of the Visakhapatnam branch, everybody, with due respect, sir, everybody will call if I talk to any person, immediately today's speaker is Sri K.V.R. Subbarao Garu means, see, K.V.R. Subbarao Garu means only this Trust Subbarao Garu. Everybody used to ask like that. Really, so you are famous and popular speaker, sir, on the trust and charitable institution. Really wonderful, sir. So we welcome you once again to this webinar. And now I request Andavap Sridhar Garu, treasurer of the branch, to introduce Sri Subbarao Garu to this August gathering.
Good evening, friends.
Sridhar.
PA KVR Subbarao Garu is a qualified chartered accountant in the year 1977 with an All India rank. He hails from the town of Gunturu and he is practicing as chartered accountant under the name Messrs. KVR Subbarao and Co. in Guntur since the year 1978. C.A. Subbarao Garu specialized in taxation of charitable and religious trusts and societies. He is a regular presenter on various issues on taxation in various chapters of the ICAI and other forums. His articles were published in various tax journals and magazines. Family background. Subbarao Garu is married in the year 1979 and blessed with two sons, one working in his own firm and the other son is a qualified chartered accountant practicing in Hyderabad. With these few words, I introduce C.A. KVR Subbarao Garu to the August Gallery. Over to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Andhra Sridhar Garu. Now, sir, Subbara Garu, this floor is yours, sir. Now,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you can start, sir.
Good evening, friends. Today's subject is going to be very easy to appear, but it is not so. It is a difficult subject. Handling tax audit case is much easier than handling a charitable institution case. There are too many provisions related to charitable institutions for taxation. Now the government is focusing more and more on charitable institutions. In the recent times, more and more provisions are brought into the statute. There are two regimes. The first regime is about institutions claiming exemption under section 1023C, 4, 5, and 6 clauses. And other regime is, this is classified as regime number 1. And the other regime is claiming exemption under section 11, getting itself registered under 12 capital A of the Act. Earlier, once the registration under 12A is granted, that is perpetual. Similarly, section 8Z for accepting donations, a recognition is granted by the Income Tax Department. That is also, once it was only for 5 years. On the whims and fancies of the Commissioner of Income Tax, no commissioner has granted 5 years at a stretch. They used to grant only for 2 years or 3 years. Again and again, we have to make application to the commissioner and apply for recognition under section 8Z. Now that was also made perpetual. Now all this perpetuality concept is now gone with the introduction of new section 12 capital AB and also in 80Z and also section 1023C, which is related to educational as well as medical institutions. What is an educational institution? Every institution maintaining a school is not fit into the definition of education. The condition is it must exist solely for educational purposes and not for the purpose of making any profit out of it. What is means the solely? Solely means exclusively, not primarily. Exclusively, it must exist for carrying out educational activities. And again, what is profit? Profit means normally what we understand is the surplus, what is left in the profit and loss account is the profit. But here we don't prepare any profit and loss account, we prepare only an income and expenditure account. For this income and expenditure, what else is surplus available, we cannot treat it as profit. It is only the surplus, which again, it is used for the activities of the institution. So long it is used for the activities of the organization, it is not equated as profit. If any portion of the surplus is taken away by the members of the institution, that is treated as profit. So these are the two regimes. Earlier, there were certain flaws in the income tax laws. Some of the restrictions they have imposed only to section 12A institutions, barring institutions recognized under 1023C. To rationalize, in the recent Finance Bill 2022, it is totally rationalized at par with section 12A institutions. All provisions which are now presently applicable to section 12A institutions are squarely applicable to section 1023C recognized institutions also. A new provision is brought into the statute in the Finance Bill 2022, that is the maintenance of books of account. Earlier, there was no provision either in section 44AA or any other section. There is no condition for maintenance of books of account. Taking the shelter, some of the institutions are maintaining proper records. No supporting vouchers for the expenditure. Now, to put a full stop, a new provision is introduced, proposed, that is maintenance of books of account, where to keep the books of account, how long these books are to be kept, and what supporting documents are to be retained. All these are brought not in section 44 AA, but respect to sections of section 11 as well as section 1023C. Therefore, we cannot now simply say there is no obligation for us to maintain any books of account. We have to maintain from 22-23 assessment year onwards, we have to maintain and retain books of account. So that is a new provision brought in simultaneously both for first regime as well as second regime. Then comes the application. To claim exemption, section 11(1) comes to the rescue. The Act says of the total income, what is earned in the year, 85% is to be applied for charitable activities during the year to claim exemption of 100%. This provision was not there in section 1023C. Now that is also brought into pending 85% for the charitable activities. At par with 12A, all provisions apply. Unfortunately, in section 1023C, already we have 20 provisions. There are no subsections, but there are 20 provisions. Now, with this 22 finance bill, another 6 provisions are added, unnumbered provisions. We have to search every time which provision is applicable because there is no number for any provision. So the provisions are brought in to equalize and rationalize the provisions of taxation related to first regime as well as the second regime. So 85% of income is to be applied. Earlier, there is no word spent in the statute. Application means it has a different meaning. It is not necessarily spending. But now in the finance bill, they made it clear. Application is nothing but spending. We have to spend the money to claim exemption under section 11. If you follow the mercantile system of accounts, there would be so many provisions for expenditure as well as the income. In such case, we must be very careful from the assessment year 23-24 and onwards. Unless you spend the money, you cannot claim exemption under section 11(1) capital 11(1)A. So in case of engineering colleges, the problem is the AFRC to fix the fees, they ask the institutions to maintain accounts in the mercantile system. Whereas income tax, as per this latest provision, if you follow the mercantile system, you cannot claim the entire expenditure as application, and it doesn't come into that 85%. Only the amounts actually spent, that only comes to the percentage of 85. So what to do? Can we ask the institution to switch their accounting system from mercantiles to cash system? Because if that is the case, there would be a double work to the chartered accountants, because once they have to prepare books, statements under cash system and also under mercantile system to present to the AFRC and the bankers for claiming, for gaining any loans, etc. The simple way is prepare accounts under mercantile system only, but prepare receipts and payments account. In the receipts and payments account, you get only the actual payments, actual receipts. But most of our brothers, they don't prepare any receipts and payments account for filing the return of income. But prepare a receipts and payment account that simplifies your job. In the receipts and payment account, you get only the actual payments, actual receipts. Those we can claim in the return of income to save our time. So for this 11(1)(a), from 23-24 onwards, we must be very careful in considering this aspect of amount paid, actually paid, irrespective of the period. If you pay in the current year of the earlier year's expenditure, still you can claim in the current year as application of income, which is split into 85%. The next problem is, there are of course 11(1), there are explanations. Under 11(1), there is explanation 1 and 2, and also 11(1)(a) and 11(2). Explanations that comes only for the institutions maintain accounts under mercantile system. Accrual system, sometimes you may not get income. Some fellow announces, I will donate 1 lakh rupees to the institution. Normally under mercantile system, we make an entry crediting the donation and debiting the party who promised. But for 85%, you have no money to spend. So in such cases, explanation 1 comes to your rescue that says, if you file an application to a notice to the assessing officer in form number 9 capital A, then that money can be utilized in the or applied in the next year. That can be postponed to the next year. If you follow the cash system, there is no need to touch form number 9A, requesting the officer for spending in the coming year. Now coming to 11 subsection 2, there are cases where the institution may not be in a position, due to various reasons, may not be in a position to spend 85% of the income for charitable as well as religious purposes. In such case, what to do? Suppose you have 1 crore of income, of which 85 lakhs invariably you have to spend to claim exemption under section 11(1)(a). Due to various reasons, you have spent only 50 lakhs. Balance 35 lakhs is the shortfall. On that shortfall of 35 lakhs, normally one has to pay tax. But what is the remedy? The remedy is section 11 subsection 2. Section 11 subsection 2 says, if there is any unspent money that can be accumulated by filing a form number 10, now all the forms are made mandatory to be e-filed. We have to file form number 10, e-filed. Therein you have to specifically mention for what purpose you are accumulating this money. This purpose must be specifically written. Generally, our people write for the objects of the society. It is not correct. Write specifically for what purpose the money is accumulated. The second condition is you must invest that unspent money as directed under section 11 subsection 5. In section 11 subsection 5, pattern of investments given, that is depositing in scheduled banks, savings account or fixed deposits, etc. Big list we have in 11 subsection 5. There we have to deposit this money, and this also we have to write in the return of income while filing online. The maximum period applicable for this accumulation is 5 years. So for within 5 years, you can utilize the money and claim exemption under section 11(1). That is section 11 subsection 2. But there are so many restrictions for this section 11 subsection 2. The restrictions are the one is, if you fail to apply the money, what is accumulated for purposes other than charitable or religious, one condition. Second is, if the money ceases to be accumulated, you have accumulated but you have withdrawn. It is ceases to be accumulated or set apart for application to such other purposes. And the second is, if the money is withdrawn from the deposits what you have created, and if the money is transferred to another institution having the similar objectives, all these cases, you are losing the benefit of exemption under section 11 subsection 2. Therefore, the money what is accumulated under section 11 subsection 2 is to be utilized only for the purposes for which these are set apart, and also the monies are kept only in the deposits as prescribed under section 11 subsection 5, and this money is to be utilized well within the time of 5 years. But there is a clause in section 11 subsection 3, the clause is C. As per clause C, if the money is unable to spend within 5 years, there is one more year given. In the next year, after completion, the 6th year also we can claim, that is in the year immediately following the expiry of such period. So we have one more year under section 11(3) subclause C. Now in the Finance Bill 2022, that particular sentence is removed. That is, in the year immediately following the expiry of such period is removed from section 11(3)(c). That means your time is limited to only 5 years, not more. Only 5 years. Within 5 years, we have to spend the money. Else, in the next year, it becomes taxable. And in the taxable income, you don't have any right to claim 15% again. Entire amount is taxable. So therefore, be careful about these accumulations. Second thing is, to claim exemption under section 11 subsection 2, a form 10 already I told, the form 10 is to be e-filed when within the time under subsection 1 of section 139. Earlier there was some problem. That is, this form number 10 audit report return of income, only not form number 10, audit report and return of income are to be filed along with them. This form number 10 under 139 we have to file. If the form is belatedly filed, you lose the benefit of accumulation under section 11 subsection 2. Therefore, file the application well in time within the time under 139(1). So I need not have to elaborate what are the periods we have, what are the time frame we have under 139(1). There are two different time frames. So check up what time frame applicable to your institution and accordingly file form number 10. So this is a blow for accumulation under 11 subsection 2 as amending section 11(3)(c). Now for this application, before going to this application again, we see what is the income of the institution. The income is voluntary contributions, corpus donations, borrowed funds. These are the three funds available to the institutions for running the show. So voluntary contributions. What is voluntary contribution? Without asking anything, the section calls it as income from property held in the trust. If you go through section 12, it is amended. Voluntary contributions, actually it is not coming any property. It is somebody is passing through, given some donation to the institution. It cannot be equated to the income from property held in the trust. Therefore, that section was amended earlier. Any voluntary contribution also is to be treated as income from property held in the trust. So in addition, we have corpus donations. Corpus donation is a donation comes from the donor with a direction that it shall form part of the corpus of the institution. We cannot simply pass a resolution in the board meeting that 50% of the funds what we have received be transferred to corpus fund. It is only the direction must come from the donor, not from the board members. For this, you have to prepare a separate receipt clearly mentioning for what purpose you are collecting this money. If it is for the construction of a building, if it is for the construction of any chowdhury, etc., you have to mention in the receipt that it is corpus. Now, the provisions of corpus donations are totally changed with Finance Bill 2022. What are these changes? Even in Finance Act or Income Tax Act 2020, there are so many provisions spotted. The corpus donations are to be utilized only by the institution itself. It cannot transfer any portion of it to another institution towards corpus. If you transfer any money out of your corpus fund to another institution, it will not be treated as an application of income fitting to 85%. Therefore, corpus donations are prohibited to be transferred to any other institution, though it has similar objectives. Now, in the current year, this totally changed the concept of corpus donations. If you receive a corpus donation for a construction of a building, it will not be exempted under section 11(1)(d). Then what to do? The restrictions given from this finance bill are: 1, you must maintain a separate bank account, and there you have to deposit the entire corpus fund. Then only you can claim exemption. So depositing money as directed under section 11 subsection 5, and then claim exemption under 11(1)(d). Simply, you cannot write it's a corpus donation. You have to prove that this money is deposited into the bank as per 11(5). So once it is deposited, you can claim exemption for the corpus donations. The next aspect is, once you withdraw the money, suppose you have received 1 crore corpus donations in the year, and you have rightly deposited into the bank as per the provisions of the law. And out of which 80 lakh rupees you have withdrawn and utilized for the construction of property. Earlier, expenditure includes both capital as well as revenue for this 85% application. Irrespective whether it is capital expenditure or revenue expenditure, both are eligible for claiming deduction under section 11(1)(a). Now, as per the latest amendment, you deposit the entire money in 11(5) and claim exemption. You must maintain a separate bank account. Don't mix this money with the other regular bank account. The second condition is if you withdraw. The example what I am citing, out of the 1 crore, 80 lakh rupees withdrawn and utilized for the construction of a capital asset. Then you cannot claim the capital expenditure as application, because already corpus donations are given exemption. And if you claim the expenditure out of this corpus fund, it is equivalent to double deduction. Therefore, it is not permitted as per the latest provisions. Then what to do, sir? I have spent the money. My capital fund is already synced. So the act says again, if you again deposit back out of your subsequent year's incomes into the same deposit account to make the corpus donation to same again 1 crore, that portion is again permitted as application fitting to 85% as per section 11(1). That means 1 crore rupees you have received and deposited to the bank, claimed entire 1 crore as an exemption under the corpus donation. And out of which 80 lakh rupees you have withdrawn and spent the money for acquisition of the property, or you have constructed the property. And next year you have another 75 lakhs income. Entire 75 lakhs if you have deposited into the same corpus fund deposit account, you can claim the entire 75 lakhs as application of fund. Suppose you have 1 crore 20 lakhs next year income. If you deposit the entire 1 crore 20 lakhs into the corpus donation account, your total corpus donation was only 1 crore. But now you are depositing 1 crore 20 lakhs. You have to say that 20 crores additionally what we are depositing is also corpus by taking necessary precautions. So deposit the money in a separate bank account and instruct all your clients well in advance because the year is getting closed within 30 days. This provision applicable from 22-23 assessment year and onwards. Sorry, and 23-24, not 22-23, 23-24. Now, when we file the return of income belatedly, what happens? The CPC is taxing the entire gross receipts and sending you the intimation. There are various judgments pronounced by various high courts and tribunals that say income tax is to be levied only on the net income, not on the gross. But the instructions given, the software instructions given to the computer is only taxing the entire gross receipts. So every time, even if you file 154 application or rectification return, you are getting the same reply from the CPC. The next remedy is you have to make you have to file an appeal to the Commissioner of Income Tax faceless. To avoid that, this year, some clarifications are given in the finance bill. In such a situation, instead of taxing the entire gross receipts, certain expenses are permitted to be deducted, subject to certain restrictions. In the profit, in the income and expenditure, if you have totally revenue expenditure, that revenue expenditure can be claimed from the gross receipts. If any expenditure is out of corpus funds, that portion is to be eliminated. Next is, if the provisions of 40A3 and 40A-IA, which are applicable to business entities, these are mutatis mutandis, also applicable to charitable institutions. This provision has come into the statute from 2020 onwards. So therefore, any expenditure which is not permitted under 40A3 and 40A-IA, that expenditure is to be eliminated. If any expenditure is met out of borrowed funds, that portion is also to be removed. The balance expenditure only permitted to be deducted from gross receipts. So in such case, we have to do in detail while filing the return of income, what is the total expenditure, out of which what is out of the corpus fund, and out of which what is the amount of the borrowed funds. So like this, we have to do a lot of exercise for claiming if the return is filed belatedly. So to avoid all this nonsense, better file the return well within the time. In such case, the CPC automatically grants exemption and you will not be sent any demand notice. So that is another provision brought into the finance bill, which is presented before the parliament. So sooner or later it becomes an act. Earlier we used to claim excess of expenditure of the earlier years for the current year. Suppose this year you have 1 crore income and your expenditure is only 80 lakhs. There is 25 lakhs, not 80 lakhs means only 20 lakhs. This 20 lakhs is, there is a shortfall of 5 lakhs if you take 85%. Either we have to file an application under section 11 subsection 2, or sometimes we used to claim earlier year we have spent more than 85%. The shortfall we can meet out of the current year's income, stating that that expenditure was incurred in anticipation of the future income. There are case laws in favor of the institutions. The first one came in Rajasthan High Court, Maharana of Mewar, and followed by so many other judgments. Now, the Act has put a full stop to this. You cannot claim any excess amounts of earlier years in the current year's income. Because The income, I have already explained, the incomes are three types. One is the current year's income, voluntary contributions, whatever it is. The second thing is accumulated funds or the corpus donations. Or next is borrowed funds. Out of these three only we spend the money, and we cannot get anything in future. We cannot claim anything out of the future year's income. For this corpus funds, if you invest, you can claim. When you redeposit back into the same account, you can claim. One way they are allowing. The second thing is, if the money is from borrowed funds, you cannot claim it as expenditure here, because once the borrowed funds are repaid, then also you can claim the repayment as application. For these borrowed funds also, certain restrictions imposed. Earlier, when the money borrowed and spent, sometimes the government may not give the scholarships, but we have to spend the money. We grant scholarships to the students who are in the hostels and all by borrowing funds from the various banks. And such borrowings, we never take into account as income, whereas the amount spent out of it, we are claiming as application of income. Now, when the loans are repaid, then also we are claiming exemption or application under 85. That means this is double deduction, and for which now the Act has put a full stop. Borrowed funds cannot be taken as income, and any amount spent out of borrowed funds also cannot be considered as application of income. Then what is the remedy? Once you start repaying the loan, that repayment you can claim as exemption under section 11(1)(a). So these corpus funds as well as borrowed funds are almost equal. Borrowed funds also you cannot claim as income. Borrowed funds, any expenditure out of borrowed funds also you cannot claim as expenditure. Only repayment of loans only can be claimed. And I used to get cases from various auditors that our institute, I have a client, sir, that society has, it's a trust created, and this has already constructed a temple. Now we want to 12A. So once you apply for a 12A, we have to give the sources of funds where from the constructions are completed. Now we used to advise them, better take those donations or corpus donations or borrowed funds and file a return of, file an application for registration under 12A, etc., etc. Now there are two restrictions that are coming to the statute. The first restriction is section 56, subsection 2, clause 10. Section 56, subsection 2, clause 10. That has come into the statute from Finance Act 2017. That has given a total restriction on donations from third party. Only donations from related parties. Relation is of course defined there. Only from the related party we can take the donation. If any money received from third person up to 50,000 rupees, it is exempted. If it crosses, the entire amount is taxable in the hands of the donee, not the donor. The section, you have two subsections in 56(2), subsection 10. There are two clauses. The one clause is, wonderfully it is framed, money is received without consideration. Simply they said money. It is not the income received. It is only money, or not funds. It is money received. Money means either it is capital receipt or a revenue receipt. Both are equal to money. If any money received without consideration, that is taxable. So only remedy is ask them to give loan. How many persons are ready to give a loan to a temple? Because they don't have any source to give loan. If it is donation, they simply give out of their undeclared money. If you ask them to give a proper way, they'll go back. So now the door is shut. You cannot claim without, there is an exception given in the same section 56(2). Institutions registered under 12A can take the donations without payment of any tax. So therefore, once your institution is not registered under 12A, you don't have any way to raise funds, whether it is a capital receipt or revenue receipt. So if any person comes to you after constructing the temple or Sai Mandirs, etc., we cannot save them. The entire money is taxable. Recently, one auditor has come to, sir, my church got a notice from the income tax department asking for the cash deposits made into the bank, 58 lakh rupees deposited. He says these are all the offerings from the devotees. Whether it is an offering from devotee or through any other source, it is not registered under 12A. The entire 58 lakhs is taxable by virtue of the provisions 56(2). So therefore, be careful. Even if we are careful, the SSC is not careful. After completing the mandir only, they come to us for a help. Then we may not be in a position to help them.
Sir,
Yes.
I have a query, sir. Shall I raise now or shall I raise the query at the end of this session?
Ask the chairman, sir.
Okay. Sir,
End of the session, we can ask the question, sir.
okay, right, sir.
It is better to have the question hours later. Now coming to these educational institutions. In educational institutions, there are two separate divisions. One is educational institutions whose gross receipts are less than 1 crore, and educational institutions whose gross receipts are crossing 1 crore. Less than 1 crore covered under section 1023C 3AD, and health institutions under 1023C 3AE. Once this crossing the 1 crore, then comes 6A into operation. In such cases, we have to make an application to the CBDT earlier. Now it is only to the principal commissioner for recognition. Now, with our wisdom, we used to claim even the institutions' income, institutions' gross collections are more than 5 crores. Still, we are claiming our society is maintaining 5 institutions, sir. Each institution's gross receipts are less than 1 crore. The section says institution, no plurality. Therefore, every institution is not crossing 1 crore. Therefore, we are not fit into 11.6, the 1023.6 6A. We are fit into only 1023C 3AD. So, wisely, we are writing accounts for school separate, intermediate junior college separate, hostel separate, transport separate, etc., etc. Now, the finance ministry is very kind enough to raise the limit from 1 crore to 5 crores. We felt happy, but the restriction is all put together. If you have n number of institutions all put together, it should not exceed 5 crores. So they have put a full stop. There is no litigation. So once your institution's gross collections exceeded 5 crores, you have to come into 1023C 6A. That is educational institutions as well as medical institutions. If it is less than 5 crores, still you can enjoy the benefits under section 1023C 3AD. No need to file any application for recognition. No need to file any audit report for the return of income. There is no requirement to get your accounts auditor under 1023C3AD that is given in the provision of 1023C3AD. But CPC has raised some 1 or 2 years back taxes for all those 1023C3AD institutions, the total demand on the gross, stating that you failed to furnish form number 10B audit report. So officer also asked me, sir, these are the cases we have come with a huge demand, what to do? Better write to CPC, sir. As per this particular provision, these are not, they are not to get their accounts audited and file any audit report. Later, they have removed the tag of audit and process the returns of income. Next comes these donations are 2 types. Voluntary contributions are 2 types. One is a known person giving a donation to the institution, and unknown person giving a donation to the institution. Any contribution from an unknown person is called anonymous. You can see in temples, hundis are erected. In the hundi, the devotee goes and puts some money. He doesn't give any Aadhaar card. He doesn't provide any PAN card along with his currency, what is put into the hundi. Is it an anonymous donation? Definitely it is an anonymous. So any contributions received by institutions without any identification of the donor is anonymous. These anonymous donations are taxable at 30%. MMR rate, 30% of tax. Then all temples have represented. This is very difficult for us to identify the donor who is putting money into the hundi. Then government has also considered the request of those temples and mandirs, etc., etc. They said religious institutions are exempted from this corpus donations. Now an issue has come in. The issue is whether Hinduism is a religion or not. You may say Hinduism is definitely a religion. But there is a controversy. If you go through a tribunal judgment of Nagapur Tribunal, that is Shiva Mandir Trust. This was pronounced some 8 years back. Shiva Mandir Trust. They have made an application to the commissioner for recognition under section 80G. 80G recognitions are permitted only to charitable organizations, but not to religious organizations. In such case, rightly commissioner rejected the application, stating that US is a religious institution. Then they went to the tribunal. The tribunal described the entire Hinduism. What is Hinduism? They have quoted Swami Vivekananda citations, etc., etc. Finally, they said Hinduism is only an ism, but it is not a religion. That means many walks of people, they join together, they do the same type of puja, but they may pray different gods. Though they collectively live, it is only an ism. It is not Hindu religion, but it's only Hinduism. When Hinduism is not a religion as pronounced by that tribunal, Nagapur Tribunal, then the entire problem is about anonymous donations. Every day you can see at 7 o'clock in the evening, they're scrolling on the television news channels. Today's collections, hundi collections, 2.8 crores, 4.6 crores. The scrolling you can see, even today also you can see. So many pilgrims attended, 56,000 people, and the total collections from hundi is so and so. Once it is not a religion, Tirumala temple is also out of the definition of religion. In such case, it is taxable. But no officer is dared to touch that particular because it's highly sensitive, very sensitive. Similar is the case with Sai Mandirs. There was a wonderful case. Once it is decided in 1973, Chennai High Court, that's now Madras High Court. Madras High Court has pronounced a wonderful judgment, followed by the Andhra Pradesh High Court, the combined Andhra Pradesh. Then 1974, we have a judgment. Endowment Department Commissioner has given a notice to the Secunderabad Sai Baba Temple, Sai Mandir, stating that we will take over the administration of the Sai Mandir. Then the Sai Samsthan, there is a forum in Delhi, they have filed a case. They have argued at various levels and they said Sai is not the God, he is only a guru. And they have 30, I think it's 23 pages order pronounced by the High Court. There they have narrated totally the life of the total Sai, when he born, where he brought up, etc., etc. And finally they said, Sai Mandir is not a religious institution, therefore endowment has no role to play there. Okay, we are happy. Sai Mandir is out of the religious endowment clutches. Now come to the other side of the coin. Anonymous donations 115 BVC. This exemption is only for the religious institutions and not to charitable institutions. Once it is out of the religious clutches of the endowment, it is put into the charitable institution, Sai Mandir. In every Sai Mandir, you find the hundis. The entire hundi collections must be taxed as anonymous donation. So far, no case has come up. Even income tax officials are also human beings. They may not touch that sensitive issues. You can go through these cases in Nagpur Hotel Owners Association, not Nagpur Owner, Nagpur Tribunal's case, that is of Shiva Mandir Trust, as well as the Sai Mandir Trust of 1974 of Andhra Pradesh. Now coming to utilization of funds, undue benefit passed on to the members of the institution, either the members or the relatives, which are defined under subsection 3 of section 13. The list of persons defined under 13 subsection 3, whether any benefit is passed on to them, that particular portion is taxable at the maximum marginal rate. But there is no provision in the law to charge the maximum marginal rate. That was pronounced in the 1978 Finance Bill. The master circular is given. There it is to be taxed at the maximum marginal rate. There was a lot of confusion about charging maximum marginal rate. Now in the Finance Bill 2022, they brought clarity and introduced this new section 115 BBI. A new section is introduced to tax at the maximum marginal rate for such violations. So any benefit passed on to the interested persons is hit into the provisions of 13.1 subclause C, 13.1C. So if any benefit is passed on to them, tax is payable at 30% on that particular portion which is given to them. Earlier in Manipur, there are so many medical institutions established. Many hospitals are also constructed. But the member of that particular society, if he wants to join in the hospital, he is prohibited by that particular law. He has to go to a different hospital. He cannot join into the same hospital which is managed by their own institution. Violation under 13.1C. After several representations, section 12 is amended. There they said, any benefit given to the members by the same organizations, in such case, if it is free of cost to the treatment given, the total amount is the income of the institution. If it is concessional, only to that portion is to be treated as income of the institution under section 12. Whereas this 13 1C violations, one should be very careful. A new provision is brought in, a penalty provision 271 AAE. A new provision 271 AAE. Suppose a benefit given to the member this year 1 lakh rupees. That 1 lakh rupees is taxable at 30% MMR. And as per this 271 AAE, a penalty is also leviable, which is equal to just 100%. For the first time, if it is noticed in the second time, the penalty is 200%. If 1 lakh given to the member after 2022-23 assessment year, he shall be liable, the institution is liable to pay another lakh rupees as penalty under 271 AAE. If the same fellow is again benefited by another 1 lakh rupees in the next year, the penalty is not just 1 lakh, it is 2 lakhs. On 1 lakh 30% tax plus penalty is 2 lakhs. That is the maximum given. If he takes another time, it is again only 2 lakhs, no 3 lakhs. So that is the penalty for crossing on unreasonable benefit to any trustee or specified persons, managers or their children, members, their children, etc., etc. List given in 13 subsection 3, but there are certain exceptions given in section 13 subsection 2. Just to go through section 13 subsection 2, a list of exemptions given. If the benefits given are fit into 13 subsection 2, they can no need to pay any 30% tax, and also there won't be any penalty under 271 AAE. Now coming to this accreted income, highly dangerous section, accreted income, 115 TD, 115 TD, TE, TF, 3 sections covering the accreted income. This is brought into the statute from the Finance Act 2016, applicable from 17, 18 and onwards. Lots of mistakes committed by our brothers under this particular section 115 TD. So what is this 115 TD? What is accreted income? Accreted income means the fair market value of assets less liabilities is the accreted income, on which 30% tax is leviable. So that is the accreted income, fair market value of assets less liability, on which 30% tax is payable by the institution. When the situation arises, the situation arises are different situations. One is once the 12-year registration is cancelled. Similarly, for the first regime, if recognition under 1023C is cancelled, this section come into play. And once the institution is dissolved, then all assets are to be transferred to another institution recognized under 12-year or 1023C having similar objectives. If the monies are not so transferred, then also this 115 TD comes into play. Also, if any institution is converted into or merged with another institution which is not registered under 12A, in such case also 115 TD comes into play. Now the problem is our brothers. While filing the return of income, there is a column in the software that is 115 TD. The auditors rightly, they have to fill up all the columns. They have opened the column of 150 TD and fill the total value of asset, and also liabilities column. They have filled the liabilities from the balance sheet and filed the returns. In our place, almost 13 cases selected for scrutiny under 115 TD. Officer just rang up to me, sir, these many cases have come under 115 TD. What can I do? What action I have to take? and what is this 115 TD? Then I wondered how he has written this 115 TD, why he has touched 115 TD when the institution is running. So he cannot touch upon this 115 TD provisions, but by mistake or carelessness or ignorance, whatever we call, they have filled that 115 TD value of fair value of assets as well as the liabilities. Recently, a case has come to me, which I have filed an appeal before the faceless commissioner just 3 days before. They have come with a notice, sir, we are to pay so much of tax, that is 80 lakh rupees, we have to pay tax. Then I said, well, where is the assessment order? They said, we do not have the assessment order. Without assessment order, what can you do? To file an appeal, I need assessment order as well as demand notice. These are the two basic documents required to file an appeal. Then I asked those people, better go to the income tax office and ask the officer to give a copy. Sir, it is not done by the assessing officer here. Then where it is? By the faceless assessment. Okay, if it is the faceless assessment, give the user ID password. Then I can download the assessment order. The closure orders are available. Also, then they have given that. Once I open the closure, when I have touched the site, I found first 270A penalty order. Already penalty is also levied. The penalty is 22 lakhs. 270A for underreporting, 22 lakhs penalty levied. Then I enlightened them. There is another appeal is to be filed for the penalty in addition to the assessment. Then I opened the assessment. Just while going through the 270A, I found the mistake what is committed by the auditors. There it is written accredited income. Accredited income is the, by virtue of 115 TD only accredited income comes into play. Then I got the case. Immediately I opened that assessment order. In the assessment order, unfortunately, the department is also sailing in the same lines. The assessing officer, what he has written is, the institution hasn't filed audit report in form number 10B. Therefore, they lose the benefit of exemption under section 11. Actually, they filed the return of income claiming exemption under 1023C 3AD, educational institutions whose gross receipts are less than 1 crore. There is only 39 lakhs their gross receipts. So for which no audit is required, no obligation to file any audit report in form 10B. Then next he has narrated the provisions of 115 TD, TE, etc. It is nowadays preparing assessment order is much easier because officers also equipped with the systems. They have just downloaded the act, that is 115 TD, etc. They have just copied and pasted in the assessment order, narrating all the provisions of 115 TD, TE. And finally, he says, income returned nil, income assessed, adding accredited income, some 1 crore or so, whatever it is. And I gone through the computation sheet. Unfortunately, in the computation sheet, in the assessment order, he has just added the accredited income. Though he has declared, though he has described that the institution hasn't filed form number 10B, he hasn't written anything about it while completing the assessment order. In the computation, he has taken two different calculations of tax. One for not filing 10B audit report, the entire 39 lakhs at normal rate of tax. And for accredited income, another table for calculating at 30%. The total tax levied is around 80 lakhs, 68 lakhs. Now the total liability on the part of the institution is crossing 80 lakhs. For a simple mistake done by the auditor while filing the return of income. Therefore, be careful in touching upon these sections. If any unknown section like 115 TD, etc., just to go through the provisions and then fill up the return of income. Yesterday also, one funniest audit report I have seen. The institution's gross receipts are 4 crores. and their expenditure is 3 crore 90 lakhs. Balance left is only 10 lakhs. The auditor has given a report that they have spent that balance 10 lakh rupees towards 11-1A. Actually, they have spent 3 crores 90 lakhs. Blindly, he has given the audit report stating that 11-1A application of income is only 10 lakhs. Unfortunate. The CPC has raised the demand on the balance 3 crore 90 lakhs. 1 crore 45 lakhs demand raised just because of the mistake of our brother. So be careful in filling the columns of the return ITR 7. The sufferer is the client, not we. After all, we simply leave that case to somebody. So this is about 115.6, the 115 TD. Now the issues for 115 TD are income tax is normally to be levied on the income, but not accreted assets. Whereas they have beautifully named it as accreted income and levying a tax on such accreted income at 30%. But certain incomes are excluded, that is, if any contributions are received prior to getting 12A, that portion is excluded. And the capital receipt, but the problems are the institution might have acquired properties with the corpus donations. Earlier, corpus donations were treated as capital receipts and it was not coming to the tax. If any asset acquired out of the corpus donations, how can the income tax levy tax on the entire accreted income? And also, if any asset is acquired with the funds on which already 30% tax paid, that is anonymous donations 115 BBC. Anonymous donations are taxable, though I have paid the tax and that money I have utilized in acquiring the property. Again, you are taxing under 115 TD. That means it is double taxation. When we claim double deduction, there are so many restrictions brought into the statute. Similarly, when they do the double taxation, why cannot we raise issues in the courts? Earlier, the return of income is to be filed along with audit report form as per form 12, section 12A 1B. The return is to be filed along with the word along with created a lot of problems to institutions. Today night I have filed audit report, whereas unfortunately when the system was busy, I could file my return only the next day. Both are well within 139 subsection 1. By mischief of that particular section, the audit report is also to be filed along with the return, means both to be filed on the same day. But unfortunately, I have filed audit report today and return of income the next day. Both are well within the time of 139(1). Exemption is denied. So, for which the board has come to our rescue and 119.2 as per 119.2 and circulars issued to that effect. For 16, 17, 17, 18, if any audit report is obtained and filed well within the time of 139(1), and the return of income is also filed well within the time, though these two are not filed along with, the mistake is condoned and the tax is removed, the tax levied is removed. For other assessment years, we have to make an application with the Commissioner of Income Tax. If the delay is 365 days, then the Commissioner will entertain your application and may grant condonation. If it is beyond 365 days, as per the Bombay High Court's judgment, you have to make an application to the CBDT only. Commissioner has no role to play. But once you file an application to the CBDT, they will call for report from the local commissioner, that is jurisdictional charity commissioner. Now, 115 TD is further elaborated with this Finance Bill 2022, and here they have given certain specific violations list. The specific violations list is, if the violation is reported by the assessing officer 143.3 to the Commissioner of Income Tax, he will act upon it, calling for necessary documents, and then finally he cancels the 12-year certificate. Once the 12A or 12AB certificates are cancelled, the 115 TD come into play, and on accrued income, tax is to be paid at 30%. Now, for the specific violations, subsection 4 is added to section 12 capital AB. These are the trust or institution under the second regime has been applied other than for the object for which it is established. That means you have to spend your money only for the objectives for which it is established. If you spend for any other objectives, that is called as special violation. Then income from profits and gains of business, which is not incidental to the attainment of objectives, or separate books of accounts are not maintained. The separate books of account concept is in section 11.4a, as read with section 11.4. The trust also can do business provided it is incidental to the attainment of its objectives. Otherwise, it cannot do any business. And also a proviso is brought into section 2, subsection 15 in the year 2008. They have given a detailed, that is for objects for general public utility. If you are carrying on any business, there are certain restrictions provided in section 2, subsection 15. That is definition section. Now for this business, if it is not incidental to the attainment of its objectives, that is a specific violation. Though it is incidental to the attainment of objectives, but no books of accounts, separate books of accounts are maintained, then income if the income of the trust are utilized for the benefit of private religious trust or applied for any part of the income for the benefit of any particular religious community or caste. Section 13.1, there are two subclauses. There, you cannot apply any money for the benefit of any particular private religious institution, nor it can apply for any particular religious community or caste. But there are certain exceptions. For private religious institution, there is no exception. The commissioner may call for such records and may cancel if you apply your funds for private religious purposes. And the second one is if the funds are utilized for any benefit of any particular religious community or caste. There are so many caste-based institutions we have. Arya Vaisya, Brahmana, Kamma Janaseva, like this, so many caste-based institutions. If any institution is created for the benefit of any particular religious community, it is not eligible for exemption under section 13.1c. Once it is violated the provisions, as per section 12AA, subsection 3, now it is 12AB, subsection 4, the commissioner has every right to cancel your registration. But there is an exception. If any institution created prior to the Income Tax Act, prior to means 1/4/1961, the act has come in, but that is applicable from The 1961 Act is applicable from 1/4/1962 and onwards. If you go through section 1, you get from when the section is applicable. In section 1 of the Act, it is clearly stated that this Act coming to operation from 1/4/1962. If any institution created prior to that date is eligible, it can do the activities for their particular religious community. But you cannot open any institution for the benefit of particular religious community created after 1/4/1962. So this is a specific violation given under 12AB subsection 4. And when the activities of the institution are not genuine, and if you fail to comply with any other laws, that is also one of the conditions coming under specific violation. Suppose you are registered and you are collecting money from abroad, for which there is an act, Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. You have to adhere certain rules and regulations, filing quarterly information, filing annual returns, and applying for renewals, etc. There are so many restrictions. If you fail to fulfill any of these, if it comes to the notice of the Commissioner of Income Tax through the assessing officer, that is also a specific violation. Under all these conditions, the Commissioner may cancel your application or your registration granted either under 12AA or 12AB, the new section, 12AB. Therefore, be careful about adhering other laws also. Now coming to this new registration regime, we have still 30 days to file re-registration application under section 12 capital AB. And a suitable provision is given under section 12A1 AC, subsection AC. And those institutions have to make an application because now it is all a digital regime. Earlier commissioners, jurisdictional commissioner used to grant 12-year registration. If you go and ask any commissioner, some 6 years back record, they don't have. There is no back record at all in any of the income tax offices. There is no comprehensive information with the government. Therefore, they have brought in a new provision, section 12AB. As per this section 12AB, earlier we have, once the 12 is granted, it is perpetual. And section 80G, if anything granted and was recognized under 80G, that was also perpetual. That perpetuality system is gone. Now, as per the new section 12AB, presently they are calling it as re-registration. There is difference between re-registration and renewal. We generally use the word renewal. It is not renewal, it is only re-registration at present. As per the re-registration, government is collecting more and more data from the institutions. They are calling for bylaws copy, registration certificate, members details, financials, etc. All this we have to submit to the government. If the bylaws are in vernacular language, you have to get it translated, and both documents you have to file to the government online, for which you have a form 10 capital A. In such form, that particular form is for 1023C, 12A, also for 80G, the same form. You have to select separate codes. And once you file this, they are just taking your data without raising any queries. They are granting registration, that is called, that is in form 10 capital AC. Within a week or within 10 days, you are getting re-registration. From next 5 years, this is valid for maximum 5 years period. So before the end of 5 years, within 6 months before the end of 5 years, you have to make a renewal under 12AB. Now it is only 10A for re-registration. After 5 years, you have to make an application for renewal, then the commissioner may call for any documents. Verify, then only he grants or rejects your 12A. That is under 12AB. Similarly for 1023C and also 80G. So time is coming close. Therefore, you make the application. The time left is only 30 days. Before 31st of March, you have to make applications for re-registration. I think most of you have all the registrations, re-registrations. Now, earlier we used to claim either of the sections, either 1023C or section 12A. Now, with the introduction of section 11, subsection 7, you cannot claim. Once you are claiming under section 12A, you are not eligible to claim under section 1023C because of this new registration regime. Once you apply for a 12-year registration, it is granted. You cannot apply again for a 1023C. Once you apply for a 1023, when it is granted, your 12-year, if at all you have, that comes that becomes inoperative from the date 1023C is granted. Earlier, some of the institutions holding both 1023C as well as 12A. So you have to select which section under which you want the registration. Once you have applied for 12A by mistake, already you have 1023C. You have applied for 12A. Then they have granted 12A. But now you are making an application for 1023C because you want only 1023C. In such case, government may grant 1023C. Once it is granted, your 12A becomes inoperative. But how many times we can choose? Only once, not every time. Once you go into 1023C for the first time, you cannot go back again to 12A. You have to surrender one certificate. Now, provisional registration. And before going to the provisional registration, the time is only 30 days left. Again, you failed to apply your application for re-registration. From 1st April onwards, you don't have 12A. Do you call it as cancellation of registration under 12A and the provisions of 115 TDA tracts? No, it is called inoperative. Your exemption under section 11 is inoperative exemption. It is not equal to cancellation. Therefore, once you fail to file application within the time, you lose the benefit of exemption under 11(1) for that particular year. If you make application in the next year, from the other year onwards, you will get exemption if the re-registration is granted. And then provisional registration. What is this provisional registration? Earlier, when an institution is established and when we make an application, immediately the commission, we get a communication from the commissioner's office rejecting the application stating that you have not so far commenced any activity, therefore you are not eligible for any registration under 12A. And to put a full stop for this discretion, a provisional registration is brought in. Once you make an application for provisional registration, automatically the commissioner grants provisional registration without making any queries. This provisional registration is valid for the maximum period of 3 years. Again, 6 months prior to 3 years or within 6 months from the date of commencement of activities. This is $1 million confusion. What is commencement of activities? You have established one institution by registering your document. You have purchased one computer and one table and fixed it. Do you say that it is commenced activity? You have appointed 2 clerks in your institution. Do you say it is commencement of activity? Definitely, they cannot. So the government may say, you have already commenced, but you have come belatedly after 6 months. Therefore, your provisional registration is cancelled. So here, commencement of activity is not so clear. Therefore, be ready and file your application within 6 months from the commencement of any activity. Is it activity means only charitable activity? Because charitable activity includes your administration expenses also you are claiming as application of income. Therefore, why cannot it be taken as application? Why cannot it be taken as activity commenced? Therefore, be careful. And you have made up your mind. Once a provisional registration is granted, you thought, why cannot I continue this? Why cannot I stop this activity? Then you haven't made any application for regularization of your registration and you have not responded within 3 years. Then automatically you lose the benefit of exemption under provisional registration. That is also not equal to cancellation of registration and no provisions of 115 TD attracts. Now coming to section 80G. 80G also we have to go for re-registration. Once it's re-registered, there are so many obligations brought in. Earlier we have, if any donation given by the donor, if it is crossing 2,500, unless it is given through check or any banking channel, he cannot claim exemption, though we have issued a receipt. Now further amendments is, now you have to make an application for re-registration of section 80G, for which also the form is 10A. For renewal onwards from form 10AB, that we discuss after 5 years. Now at present it is only 10A. Once you have filed the application, automatically you get for 80G renewal re-registered for a maximum period of 5 years. And you start collecting donations from donors. Now the other obligations here are, once that is in the 2020 finance bill, these are brought in. Once you start collecting donations, if you give a receipt, the donee cannot claim, the donor cannot claim deduction from his total income with the receipt what is given by you. Then how can he? The conditions are, you have to file an application, you have to fill all the columns. A form is prescribed. That form is 10BD. 10BD. In such form, you have to report all the donations received with the necessary particulars, the PAN number of the donor, and also the mode of receipt, the address of the donor, etc., etc. You have to fill and submit online to the income tax department. Once you file the application, when this application is to be filed, at every stage? No, only once in a year. Before 31st of May, you have to make the application, filling all the columns. If there are any mistakes committed, you can also revise the application. So once this application is filed before 31st May, then you can download the receipts again from online in form 10BE. That receipt you have to give to the donor to claim deduction from his total income. Now, if we fail to file form 10BD before 31st May, as usual, the penalties. The penalty is 234F. We know 234E is for late filing of tedious returns. Here it is not 234F, it is 234G. The 234G as per it, every delay for every day, 200 rupees penalty. They call it as a fees, not penalty. So 200 rupees under section 234B, 234G. And also you are liable for penalty under section 271K of rupees 10,000 or up to maximum of 1 lakh. So therefore, be careful about institutions which are collecting donations and are registered under 80G. Make an application in form 10BD online. Now a new proviso is brought in the Finance Bill 2022 that says, if any religious institutions received contributions for the renovation of the temple or reconstruction of the temple, etc., etc., at the option of the temple, at the option of the institution which is running the temple, can treat such donations as corpus. You cannot, as per section 12A, there should not be any direction from the donor. If he gives donation for the renovation, repair, etc. of the temple, Gurudwara, mosque, church, etc., etc., that in money you can treat it as corpus donation by following the conditions what I have explained earlier. You have to maintain a separate bank account and deposit it to the bank account. And you have to utilize only for the objectives for which it is given. That is for the repairs, etc., reconstruction, remodeling. And option is given to the only temple. Therefore, you need not have to get any direction from the donor. He comes and gives the money for the renovation of the temple. You simply treat it as corpus donation so that you are out of the provisions of section 11 subsection 2, that is not spending the money 85%, the extent, etc., etc. So these are the basic and amendments brought in by the statute in the Finance Bill 2022. To cover up these provisions, I have touched upon the back sections also. So I hope I have finished my time, 1.5 hours given to me. I have completed the session. Thanks for the listening. Now it is left to you for raising the queries, if any.
Sir, thank you, sir. Subbarao, so excellently done well. So really, I felt very happy, sir, because I also served 2 years at Guntur. Subbarao is that. So really, with you have given us the opportunity, and you have done well, sir. Now, members, any questions, any clarifications, please unmute yourself and ask. It is a great opportunity for us to have with the authority on the religious trust and charitable institutions.
You can also
Good evening, sir.
mail.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good
You
evening.
put on
I'm
your
not-
audio, video also.
Video also.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Sir, sir.
You
Yes, sir. Raise your query.
please show
Sir.
yourself.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening. No, you are on mute.
Unmute yourself.
No.
Yes, sir. Regarding temple trust, which was not registered so far under section 12A. They have taken the donations and they have collected from 2015 onwards. What is the present status if they are not filed 10A? If at
No,
all,
I have given an, I have already covered this under section 56 to 10.
56.
This is 56 to clause 10, Roman 10. Where
Okay.
it is clearly said, any donations collected after 1/4/2020 are taxable at the maximum marginal rate.
ఒక్క నిమిషం.
Maximum marginal rate, that is taxable at the marginal rates. Therefore, whether it is, I also cited an example. One fellow has come to me that they are running a church. The church is 50 lakhs rupees or so. They got a notice from the department.
Yes.
So therefore, any donations collected prior to 1/4/2017, you are safe.
Yes.
But collected afterwards, not permitted.
They have shown it as a corpus donations and they have filed the return by showing the interest income under other sources so far.
The corpus donations, are they received prior to 1/4/2017 or? If
Okay.
they have collected prior to 1/4/2017, 56 doesn't come into play.
Yes.
So that you can keep it as a corpus donation, and you can use the accruals on it, that is interest, etc., for the maintenance of the institutions, but it's taxable. That once it exceeds the 2,50,000 rupees, you are liable to pay tax on it.
Right. So what is the remedy for that, sir? For the after 1/4/2017, they have collected some donations and they are kept under FDs
There is no remedy provided in the act. Pay tax and forget.
on the total gross receipt.
Yes, any donations collected after 1/4/2017.
Without giving any expenditure.
Pardon? No. Go through 56(2).
Okay.
That allowing expenditure is on a different footing. Once you file the return of income belatedly, once you are not permitted to claim 11(1). There the expenditure is permitted,
Okay.
but collecting donation from third party taxable under 56(2).
Yes, sir. Okay.
Sir, this is Satya Prakash.
Hello?
Hello,
Yes, sir.
this is Satya Prakash.
Yes, sir.
I have a query related to this unspent corpus donation. Like, okay, it has to be under section 1023 or 13 also. Has to spend within five years. Whether
No,
it is
sir.
the end of 5
Corpus-
years or if it is not spent within 5 years. So when it will be taxable? On the 5th year or like, okay, after 5 years?
Sir, corpus fund, once you have received, you have to follow only such rules, maintaining a separate bank account and depositing into the bank as per the latest provision. And there is no time limit prescribed within the what time frame you have to spend it. You can.
Sir, I think there is 5 years, like within 5 years it has to be spent.
5 years is only restriction for 11 to unspent money. This doesn't come into this 100% and 85% definition. This is exclusive. Corpus donations are exclusively exempted if you follow the rules of the corpus funds. Even if you spend the money out of the corpus bank account, that you can again return back. And if you don't want to maintain the corpus, spend and forget.
Okay. I think the unspent money has to be spent within 5 years.
No, sir, that provision is not applicable to corpus.
I understand that, like, okay,
No,
now
sir,
you have,
just go through 11.2, only the current year's income, corpus donation under 11(1)(d), small d.
okay, thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes,
So regarding this 12A and 80G registrations, you mentioned about re-registration and renewals. So for whatever registration that they have, existing societies and trans, do they have to go for re-registration, sir?
I couldn't catch your question.
The
Be
re-registration,
loud, be loud.
re-registration, sir, regarding re-registration of the.
Re-registration, yes.
Yeah, like the existing trusts and societies, those who has got the exemptions on the 12A and 80G registrations, do they have to go for re-registration again, sir, before this 31st
No,
March?
once they are already covered under 12A, once they are already granted 12A or 1023C,
Yeah.
they have to go for re-registration. If they do not have 12A, they have to go for provisional registration.
Okay. They have already,
Re-registration is only for already registered institutions, either under 12A or 80G or 1023C.
okay, okay,
If they do not have these certificates earlier, they have to go for only provisional registration.
okay, okay, okay. Okay, they already have, means they have to go for re-registration.
Yes, once you have 12A, you have time left is only 30 days. Within
Okay.
30 days, file a re-registration application in Form 10 capital A. Automatically, you get a re-registration within a week time.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, one more thing regarding this filing the IT form 10B we issue. Do we need to give 44 AB also for this society's financials?
Our brothers are highly intelligent. Our brothers filing Form 10B audit report as well as 44 AB
Is it requires
for
44 AB?
institutions. Why? Because
Sir,
they don't read the section 44 AB clearly. 44 AB clearly says any person whose gross receipts or turnover from profession or business exceeds certain limit, they must get their accounts audited and obtain a report before a specified date. Do you say that you are running an educational institution? Do you say that it is a business?
no, sir. We are giving income and expenditure account or resistance payment
Yes, sir.
account. We are not giving P&L
It is
account.
only a charitable activity.
Sir,
Versus a society. How can it be under 44 AB?
sir.
44 AB doesn't play at all. If you have a business incidental to the attainment of your objectives, you have to maintain separate set of books and then get it audited under 44 AB if it exceeds certain limits. If there is no business, there is no need to file 44 AB report.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You were like, the doubt haunting me since the filing for last
I
2
have seen
years.
so many of the auditors who come to me. I have seen this particular mischiefs
Sir.
almost in every 10 for tax audit report, etc.
Yeah, that's what. So unnecessarily we are giving something wrong. Actually, we are not supposed to give 44 AB tax audit report for that.
Pardon?
We are not supposed to give form 3CB, 3CD for this societies.
3CD is only for the business.
Only
side.
for business. That's what.
This 44 AB, very
Yeah.
first sentence you get the answer.
Sir, yeah.
10B is for the charitable institutions.
Yes, sir.
Sir, good evening.
Institutions is form 10BB. For charitable institutions, form 10B.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Two different forms.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir, namaste, sir.
Sir,
Regarding the, if any accounting year, if the expenditure is more than the gross receipt,
pardon, I couldn't get it.
if the expenditure, either capital expenditure or the revenue expenditure is more than the what the gross collection of the donations, whatever object is income. If that excess expenditure can be claimed in the next year as a,
I think you are joined the meeting later.
yes, sir. Sorry for the interruption, sir.
I have already covered this point.
Okay, sir. Sorry for, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, okay, sir.
Sir, good
Leave again.
Okay, sir.
You want it? Now there is a prohibition as per the latest 1022 bill. You cannot claim excess amount spent of earlier years in the current year because your funds are limited. Your annual income, corpus funds are a specific funds, and next your borrowed funds, out of which only you have to spend.
Yes.
And also in the return of income, it is clearly stated, if any surplus is spent, you have to list sources of funds wherefrom it is met. Then there you have to write whether it is out of 15% accumulation of earlier years or borrowed funds, etc.
Yes, yes. Yes. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Sir, you mentioned earlier during the presentation that there are basically three sources of revenue. One is the voluntary contribution, second one is the corpus fund, and third one is borrow fund as far as the expenses are concerned.
Yes, sir.
So these are the three sources of revenue to meet the expenditure. But sir, at times the institution receives grants from government agencies or other charitable.
Those are called specific funds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Specific
Market funds.
So these funds
So specific
these
funds.
funds are not at the disposal of the organization.
Just listen to me. just listen to me. Specific funds has a different meaning.
Ah.
You have only a legal obligation. It is neither your income. That
Exactly.
amount spent out of such funds is your expenditure.
Hmm.
That expenditure you cannot claim under 85%.
Hmm.
That's the specific funds.
Hmm.
And these funds, you have to read that document, what they're entering between the government as well as the institution. The conditions are, once they grant a crore of rupees for a certain project, this
Hmm.
crore you cannot spend in a single day. You
Exactly.
deposit in bank, and on which you earn certain interest. And the project cost is, as per the government estimation, 1 crore, whereas you have spent only 98 lakhs.
Hmm.
As per the agreement, if this 2 lakh what to do, whether it is to be returned back to the government or the interest, if any, is also to be covered under this project. Once you go through all these conditions of the agreement, if there is surplus, there is no mention about the surplus, how to use the surplus in the agreement, that 2,000 becomes your income, the institution income. Similarly, the interest, if any earned, is also, when the agreement is silent about, that also that becomes your income. Other funds are only earmarked funds. You have only a legal obligation to spend that money. You need not have to take this into your income or in the expenditure account.
Exactly, sir. Exactly, sir. So, but how these are to be reflected in the income tax return, sir? These will not be considered as.
No need to show it in the income tax return because it is not your income.
Sir, but the organization has received a notice from the income tax department stating that Form 10 has not been filed, seeking the extension of the time for incurring the expenditure. And why can't the
Specific funds, there are so many judgments, sir. We can write to the assessing officer. The unfortunate thing is, assessing officer, most of the assessing officer on the faceless line, you cannot expect them to go through all these provisions in a single day or in a month. They used to call me, many of the officers, sir, what to do with this? This is the situation what we have. Because there is so many nonsense questions. We have to bear with and support your reply with the necessary legal pronouncements.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chandra.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, I have one question regarding re-registration. Whether 10A has to be filed twice for 80G and 12A for both?
No, sir, 1023C is separate, 12A is separate, 80G is separate. For all this, the form is only 10A.
Okay.
But you cannot file all the three in single form. There are codes given. 01 is for this, 02 is for this. You have to select the code and file the application. For 80G, you have to file form 10A once. For 12A, you have to file form once.
Oh, for 2 times I have to file.
Yes.
Sir, then regarding the corpus fund, whether if we are not, open that account, separate account till now, can we open now and we can transfer that amount to that account?
Always, if you have any earmarked funds, better open a separate bank account always.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir Sudhir Garu, you are having some doubt? Sudhir. Members, any clarifications you require, utilize this opportunity, sir. He is very kind enough to accept our invitation and he has come.
Yes, sir, Vasudev garu. We are very great having such a great personality, Mr. Subbarao garu, on the subject particularly. Very nice, sir. Thank you.
Very,
Thank you,
very
sir.
big subject, sir. I have touched only a portion today.
Sir.
It's a very big subject. I have touched only a portion today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Only 1.5 hours. It takes, I think, 3-4 hours, 4-5 hours, I think so.
Maybe we need
Amendments
a
which are recently brought into the statute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Members, please.
Sai Baba. You have a Sai Baba photo that also I have covered.
Yes, sir. Just Vaziyamurthy garu, sorry, can you send the address so that I will send the Sai Baba's one small book, which is
But there is a problem with Sai Baba also.
what is the
Maintaining hundi.
yes, sir.
The hundi collections are taxable if somebody
sir.
pays us.
Yes, sir.
Because sometime back, Puri Jagannath temple,
Yes, sir.
one assessing officer has issued notices to bankers for not deducting tax on their huge deposits.
Oh,
And also he gone to the extent of prosecuting the bank people. Then the case went to High Court. 1023 BBA
Hmm.
that covers 1023 BBA that covers such institutions. Any institution is created or established by state or central government for managing the temples, mosques, gurudwaras, etc. The income of such body is not taxable. Therefore, Puri Jagannath temple is maintained by another body where the Raja of Puri is the president always. That's a big judgment. So like that, we had to fight for the Sai
Yes.
Baba also.
yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
his blessings, you may win the case.
Yes, sir. Sure, sure. Because he himself has to lead us and yes, sir. Very nice.
Nowadays, I am getting
Sir.
more and more appeals
Oh,
for the mistakes of our brothers.
yes, sir. Yes, yes. Yes.
Sir, one question, please.
Yes,
Sir, for Form 10BD, which we have to file by May 31st, after that filing, we have to issue 10BE also, sir. Is charitable trust has to issue 10BE to all the donors?
which one, sir? Are you talking about 80G?
No, sir, 10BD, Form 10BD, or donations, statement of donations.
Form 10BD is to be filed
Yes.
online to the income tax department.
Okay.
There you have to again download Form 10BE.
Okay.
Those receipts you have to distribute to the donors.
For donors, that means after that filing,
After filing 26, just like 26AS, once you file the tax reductions, then the 26AS reflects in his PAN number.
okay, sir.
So similarly, Form 10E also you have to download it, give. Because already we are doing for Form 16, you are downloading and handing over to them, Form 16, 16A.
Okay,
The same procedure
Yes,
here
sir.
also.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Even if Form 15BE is not given, it will be automatically reflected in his account, no, sir.
Pardon?
Even Form 10BE is not issued. Automatically, when the Form BD is filed, it will come into his
Form 10BD is filed, but Form 10BE is not downloaded.
yes, sir.
So Form 10B, once it is filed, automatically you get on Form 10BE. So
Okay.
if it is by mistake, if you have not filled Form 10BD correctly, you can rectify it by filing a revised return.
Okay. Just like 26 it the donation amount and the donor.
If you fail to include the names of all the donors, you will come for fight.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So better take care.
Okay.
The form is not so far prescribed. We'll wait for this current year's IT rules.
Yeah. Not yet open so far, I think so. Maybe, but we have to compulsorily file before 31st May.
Pardon?
Not at
We have to compulsorily file annual return in Form 10BD before 31st of May. If it is filed belated, 234G section coming to force. Per day, 200 rupees penalty, not
Yes.
penalty fees.
Yes, yes,
All 234 is about fees.
yes, yes.
We'll have one more session about other provisions.
Yes, sir. That is best. That-
Okay, sir. Definitely we'll do it, sir.
We need to have a full day physical session, sir, on this calculation of
Physical, we want to do it with you, physical, sir.
physical session on,
Because so many members are very fond of you, sir, here, to hear with you.
Physical presence, the problem is, earlier I have come to Vizag twice. But the
Yes, sir.
problem is now I'm also sufficiently aged. I am just 72 only.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
If I have not applied color, I have applied color. That's only the difference.
Okay, sir. Now, may I request Andor Sridharu to propose vote of thanks, sir?
thank you, sir.
Sridhar garu.
Chapna, sir. Yeah, dear members, on behalf of the Visakhapatnam branch and on my personal behalf, I sincerely thank CA KVR Subbarao Garu for such a detailed and wonderful deliberations with deep insights into the recent changes in the religious and charitable institutions with relevant case studies wherever it is required, and which has cleared all the doubts of myself and many other members. Though it is a short session on the recent changes, but we are thankful for extending the discussion to other areas which are relevant to the changes. We are looking forward for many more sessions on this very good subject. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Subbarao garu.
Also, thank our Kamasastri
Shankar Garu for guiding us to.
for guiding us.
Kamsastri telephoned to me yesterday. He says he is not available today. He is in Hyderabad.
Oh. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That we'll seek your support and cooperation in
Yes, sir. Thank you.
also, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, Vazirmurthy garu, particularly for you also for attending, arranging the Subbarao sir's this program and etc. Sir, particularly on the charitable trust. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you all the members, sir, once again.